Welcome back to the biggest, baddest, most hip and happening show in the mother city. Of course, you're tuned into EKSE, and we are on the yellow couches with Jamal Grant, who is a filmmaker, producer, and an all-round humanitarian. Guys, if you are enjoying the show, please give us a call on 021-448-0448. Or on Twitter, we are EKSE_live. On Facebook, we are EKSE on Cape Town TV. Or if you have any content that you would like to submit to the show, please don't hesitate to email us at ekse@capetowntv.org. Jamal Grant, welcome to EKSE.
Thank you, thank you.
So Jamal, what is it exactly that you do? Because I see here that you are a multifaceted human.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So currently, I'm a graduate student in public policy at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government. But what has led me here has been an interesting path. I've worked for several years at MIT as an aerospace and mechanical engineering, mostly working on space systems. I also realized that there weren't many women and minorities in the field of science and engineering. So I had founded a nonprofit with some friends back in 2016, focused on mentoring and getting more girls and minorities interested and prepared to enter science and engineering fields. And most recently, a team of researchers and myself went to South Africa in March of 2019 after a couple years of research, really trying to understand race relations, wealth inequality, and progress, or lack thereof, in South Africa since the end of apartheid.
Yeah.
And some of the inspiration for that, just to give you some background, was as our team was full of African Americans in the United States. We have different research backgrounds, and we were really saddened and frustrated by some of the economic challenges and inequality that continues to persist in the United States between Black Americans, white Americans, and other groups. So we want to know how other nations who have had histories of systemic oppression have dealt with their inequality, which is what led us on this journey to South Africa.
And I understand you're also very much involved in the STEM field. Now, what attracted you to work in this field?
I think it comes all down to exposure. I had a teacher in 7th grade who told us about this after-school science program where we'd build things that light up and airplanes and electronics. And that was really my first interest. So then my 8th grade year, I got involved in some other science fairs. But the thing is, I didn't know that these were actual careers. I was just doing things that I thought were fun. I told the teacher, I think in 8th grade, like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And she said, well, you know, you're in a science fair, you did the bridge building, you're in robotics. Why don't you think about being an engineer? And that was really my introduction. So I think that I would encourage anybody who's interested or feels like they're not interested in anything to just get involved in random programs. Not random, but just different extracurricular opportunities. You never will know what you'll find. So that was kind of the impetus. So I continued on through high school, getting involved with engineering, went to college, had the opportunity to work on submarine systems, worked on with toys at Hasbro, the toy company, and really found like the breadth of STEM education. I also realized how it could be a tool for economic mobility. And then I started to think about how technology and science can not only be used for building cool things, but also for economically empowering people.
Now, you touched briefly on mentoring, and I understand that you're also the founder of the NET mentoring group. What is it, and how did that journey actually start and happen?
So when I got to college, I realized that there weren't many minorities and there weren't many women in science and engineering. And I wondered why that was. I thought, is it just not an interest? But then I started to see some of the challenges from people from my community, from inner cities in the United States, really having a hard time keeping up with some of the academic rigor in engineering. So I spent like my summer vacations, my winter vacations, spring breaks, meeting with teachers, principals, superintendents, anybody who had anything to do with education and the achievement and opportunity gap, to realize what was really at the root of some of these challenges. And at the root of these disparities were systemic challenges, such as lack of access to resources, lack of access to great education. And then there were the socioeconomic challenges, which tie very much to just our country's history of oppression and racism. So I ended up founding the Net Mentoring Group, playing off this idea of a safety net, which really seeks to address some of those socioeconomic challenges as well as the systemic challenges in tandem.
Yeah. And I know you're speaking about oppression a lot. And why do you think it's important for people of color in South Africa, whether it be in America as well? Why do you think it's important for young people of color to actually be proactive and do things for their community?
Yeah, so I think that oftentimes we have challenges, and those challenges can be discouraging, right? And those challenges are tied to the oppression, to lack of access to resources, and it can be difficult to see beyond your circumstances. So I think a lot of times discouragement really sets in before you even endeavor to accomplish something.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes you're looking through the fog and you really have to kind of stay focused. But when you get out of that fog, there can be an inclination to say, hey, well, I made it. I'm good. I'm on my own. I don't have to worry about others. But when we look at just the history of any group who's been oppressed, overcoming those challenges, what we see is that everybody is standing on the shoulders of somebody else, or every generation is standing on the shoulders of a generation before. So as we think about the great leaders who've come before us, whether in South Africa as people of the anti-apartheid movement, or here the people of the modern civil rights movement, it's important that we kind of create strong and broad shoulders for the generations after us to move forward. And also, I think that any group that is trying to move forward needs to move forward in unison. So again, while I think that it's very easy to kind of slip through the cracks and say, hey, I made it, I've done well, let me worry about me and my family, that's certainly important. It's really important to create structures that build robust pathways to success for other people who are not as privileged or also in your community.
And you're part of the Ase Research Film Project as the lead filmmaker and producer. And your most recent project was actually in South Africa. And it was a film centered on wealth inequality 25 years since apartheid. Now, why did you choose that subject? And what did you actually learn from being here?
For sure. So in South Africa, well, like I mentioned a few minutes earlier, in the United States, people of color do not have the same wealth of white people in the U.S.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you kind of just take that for granted, and you say, "Oh, that's just the way things are." But as you get older, and you start to wonder why does this inequality exist, you're looking for answers. And I hear in the U.S. right now, our political structure is very polarized. Many times you don't know what you're hearing on TV, what's true, what's not.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be helpful to use this principle of shared learning, looking at other nations, how they've dealt with oppression, to see what we could perhaps learn and gain here. So also, and then another thing I want to do is what our team wanted to do was debunk this myth that because there's oppression is no longer legislated, that it no longer exists. A lot of times it just transforms into de facto oppression and disenfranchisement. So we were really interested in going to South Africa and seeing like how much has changed. Is it enough to end, oppressive legislation, or does more need to be done? So when we went, we certainly knew that we would still see inequality.
Yeah.
However, we were amazed at the degree to which it existed. There were times where we were at a township, and then 30 minutes down the road, we're seeing literally Ferraris and other luxury vehicles.
Yeah.
And it was really sad to see that contrast, because while we see poverty in the U.S., the scale of difference in poverty and the proximity is not quite as stark. So there was a lot that we learned about South Africa, but what we were surprised by is how much we learned about ourselves. Going there and feeling of a sense of pride to be like on the motherland, but at the same time feeling a sense of privilege, having access to things in South Africa that some South Africans don't have access to.
Yeah.
So it was really a dichotomous existence internally, as we are feeling this sense of pride and connection to people that we see that look like us where we've come from. But on the flip side, also realizing some of the privileges that the world has afforded us by nothing rather than happenstance. So it was very, very inspiring in that way to really not only focus on our own communities when making change, but spreading change both nationally and globally to the extent that we can.
Well, Jamal, unfortunately, that's all we have time for. Quickly, under 30 seconds, where can people find you if they would like to work with you or really see your work, see the film? What are the details about the film?
For sure. So aseresearchfilm.org, ASE, researchfilm.org is our website. You can reach out to us there. We're right now building the script and editing some of the footage, and we hope to have it done at the end of 2021. So feel free to reach out to us that way. Or aseresearchfilm@gmail.com is our email.
Well, Jamal, thank you so much for taking the time out to chat to us. I hope you and your family are safe during these trying times. Guys, right now, we're going to take a quick break. Please don't go away.